The Xyphorians, a powerful alien race, had been scouting Earth for months, carefully analyzing human weaknesses. They had seen humans as fragile creatures, easily conquered with their advanced technology. The Xyphorians were used to war, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. On the day of invasion, the sky was filled with dark, swirling ships as the Xyphorians descended. They landed in the largest cities, firing their weapons and causing chaos. The streets filled with screaming civilians as massive alien forces moved in, crushing resistance with ease. They believed Earth would be theirs in days. Sergeant James Carter was among the first to realize how badly Earth was about to suffer. A decorated Marine with years of experience, Carter had seen war in every form, but he knew nothing would be like this. The alien forces were overwhelming, but he understood one thing that the Xyphorians humans didn't give up easily. Even when the odds were stacked against them, they fought with everything they had. As the alien troops spread across the city, Carter formed a small team of survivors. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outwilled. The Marines quickly became a symbol of resistance, moving swiftly through the city's ruins to strike at key alien targets. But it wasn't just firepower that they needed. They needed to understand the enemy's mind, and Carter had an idea. The Xyphorians, in their arrogance, underestimated one simple thing: humans had values. While the aliens were used to war with no rules, no morals, humans fought with a deeper purpose. Carter knew this. He had witnessed it before, and now he would show the Xyphorians just how deadly human resolve could be. One night, while preparing for another assault, Carter and his team captured an alien commander. It was a bold move, but Carter knew it would send a message. He dragged the commander to the middle of a destroyed plaza, where dozens of alien soldiers were watching. "You've made a mistake," Carter said, his voice low but steady. "You think you can come here and kill us all. But you don't understand us." The alien commander, confused, scoffed. "What is this? Your last attempt to stop us?" Carter didn't flinch. "You don't understand human beings," he said. "You don't understand what happens when you commit war crimes." The alien commander tilted his head. "War crimes?" He laughed. "You speak of things that don't matter in war. We fight to win." "You fight to conquer," Carter replied, his eyes narrowing. "But you've crossed a line. You don't know what that means for you. You don't know what it means for us." The alien paused, clearly not understanding the gravity of Carter's words. For them, war was just a game. It was about victory, destruction, and power. But for humans, it was different. They fought to protect their homes, their families, their way of life. They had a line they would never cross, and they would die before they let anyone else do the same. Carter's words echoed in the air. His message was simple: humans were not like the Xyphorians. They did not fight out of cold, merciless ambition. They fought because they had something worth protecting. And they would stop at nothing to defend it. By the time the aliens realized what had just happened, it was too late. The idea of war crimes, of accountability, spread like wildfire among the Xyphorians. It wasn't something they could just brush off. The humans had shown them that there were consequences to their actions. They had crossed a line, and now they had to pay the price. As the war progressed, the Xyphorians began to lose their grip on Earth. They were relentless, yes, but they had underestimated humanity's spirit. The more the Xyphorians tried to break the human resistance, the more they realized they could never truly win. Carter's warning had planted a seed in their minds, and it grew into a fear they had never experienced before. In the dark alleys and underground tunnels, humanity was fighting back. The Marines, the resistance fighters, the everyday people, they all understood now. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something bigger, for justice, for the future, for the very soul of their planet. Carter and his team moved through the alien forces like shadows. They hit hard and fast, never letting up. As the Xyphorians began to retreat, they realized they had made a deadly mistake. They had thought Earth would be theirs in a matter of days. But instead, they were facing a war they could never win. A war they couldn't understand. The Xyphorians had underestimated the power of humanity. They thought they could crush the Earth's defenses, but they didn't know that humans fought with a fire that couldn't be extinguished. They didn't know that when a human said they would fight until the end, they meant it. And as the Xephorians retreated, Carter stood in the ruins of what used to be a thriving city. His message had been heard. Earth would never be the same, but humanity had won. And it was a victory that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The Xephorians learned the hard way. Never underestimate the power of the human spirit. The Xephorians, a fierce and highly advanced alien race, had arrived on Earth with overwhelming force. Their massive ships blocked out the sun, casting a shadow over the cities below. They thought humanity would be a simple target, just another species to conquer. They were wrong. The first few days of the invasion were chaos. The Xephorians' weapons destroyed buildings, leveled cities, and wiped out entire military forces. The humans had no chance, or so the aliens thought. They assumed Earth's defenses would fall easily. But they didn't account for one thing: Sergeant James Carter. Carter was a Marine, tough, unbreakable, and trained to survive in situations where most would give up. He had seen the worst of humanity's wars, and had faced the horrors of battle in ways that few could understand. But he had something the Xephorians didn't. He knew what it was like to fight for something greater than himself. As the Xephorians moved through the city, they crushed everything in their path, confident that their superior technology would guarantee them victory. They had never seen a human like Carter. When they attacked a small village, thinking it was a quiet, defenseless place, they made their first mistake. Carter was there, leading a small group of Marines. They had been cut off from the main resistance forces, but they were determined to fight back. When the Xephorians landed, they assumed it would be easy to wipe out these stragglers. But Carter had no intention of letting them have that victory. The battle began quickly. The Xephorians' weapons fired powerful beams, and their armored soldiers moved with deadly precision. But Carter and his team fought like they had nothing left to lose. They moved through the chaos, picking off alien soldiers one by one. They knew how to fight in ways the aliens couldn't predict. Carter's team wasn't just using guns and bombs. They were using every trick they knew, turning the landscape into a battlefield they controlled. They knew the land better than the aliens did. Every alley, every rooftop, every corner, Carter and his Marines knew how to use it to their advantage. In the middle of the chaos, Carter did something that would change the course of the war. He captured an alien commander, a high-ranking officer who'd been overseeing the attack. The alien was strong, but it wasn't ready for the kind of interrogation Carter had planned. With the alien bound and struggling, Carter looked it in the eye. "You think you can just take over our world?" he asked, his voice calm but deadly serious. The alien snarled, unafraid, its eyes filled with rage. "You're nothing," it hissed. "We are the Xephorians. We cannot be defeated." Carter smiled coldly. "You've never met a Marine before, have you?" He didn't wait for a response. He'd already begun his plan. The alien commander was taken to the heart of the city, where the remaining Xephorian forces were gathering. Carter had an idea. He wasn't just going to fight them. He was going to make them fear humanity. He called out to the Xephorian soldiers, who were preparing for another wave of destruction. "I want you to listen to me," Carter's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. The aliens paused, confused, unsure of what to expect. "You've made a mistake," Carter continued, his tone calm but filled with authority. "You think you can wipe us out? But there's something you don't know about humans." The Xephorians looked on, puzzled. They had never encountered a species like this. The concept of humanity's resolve, its willingness to fight back no matter the odds, was foreign to them. They didn't understand it. "You've broken every rule of war," Carter said, his voice steady. "You've committed war crimes, and I'm going to make you pay for it." The words hung in the air. The Xephorians didn't understand the significance of what he was saying. To them, war was simply a game of power. Whoever had the most firepower won. They never considered the consequences of their actions, the moral lines they had crossed. But Carter knew better. He understood the power of accountability. He knew that while the Xephorians might be stronger, Their lack of understanding about human values was their biggest weakness. They didn't realize that humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought for justice, for what was right. The Xyphorians, having no concept of war crimes, found themselves in an uncomfortable position. They had never been challenged this way. They had expected to crush humanity underfoot, but instead, they were now faced with an enemy that fought not out of fear, but out of a deep, unshakable belief in what was right. Carter's words spread like wildfire across the resistance. His message echoed through every hidden channel, every resistance fighter. The Xyphorians might have thought they could take Earth, but they were now facing something they couldn't defeat: human determination. As the days passed, the tide of the war began to turn. The Xyphorians found themselves unable to break through human defenses. Every time they attacked, they were met with fierce resistance. Carter's message had struck at the heart of their forces. The idea of war crimes haunted them, and they couldn't escape it. Carter and his Marines didn't stop. They continued to strike back, and each battle they fought made the Xyphorians question their own beliefs. They were no longer facing just soldiers. They were facing a species that would never back down, a species that would fight for its home until the very end. The fear that Carter had planted in the Xyphorians continued to grow. As the resistance grew stronger, the aliens realized they had made a deadly mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. In the end, the Xyphorians learned a lesson they would never forget: never, ever underestimate the power of human resolve. Sergeant James Carter had taught them that fear is something that cannot be ignored, no matter how advanced you think you are. The Xyphorians thought they had won. Earth had fallen under their boot, its cities shattered, its people scattered. The once bustling world was now a silent battlefield, echoing with the sounds of alien machines and the cries of the fallen. They expected the humans to break quickly. They expected them to surrender, to bow before their superior technology. But they were wrong. Sergeant James Carter was the last Marine standing. It was only a matter of time before the Xyphorians would find him, and he knew it. His team had been wiped out in the first wave of attacks, leaving him alone behind enemy lines. His weapons were running low, his food was almost gone, and the Xyphorians were closing in. But Carter was used to odds like this. He had fought in wars where survival was not guaranteed, where hope was a fleeting dream. He had survived worse. And now, as Earth's last line of defense, he was ready to make sure the Xyphorians learned the hardest lesson of their invasion: never underestimate a human. For days, Carter had been moving through the ruined cities, evading Xyphorian patrols, striking when he could, disappearing into the shadows when he had to. Every day, he learned more about the Xyphorians, about their weaknesses, about the way they thought. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for Earth, and he would not let it fall without a fight. The Xyphorians were arrogant. They believed they had already crushed humanity. They had bombed cities, killed thousands, and captured millions. But they had missed something. They had underestimated the one thing that humans had more of than anything else. Heart. It wasn't just that Carter was a trained Marine. It was that he had the will to fight when everyone else had given up. It was that he would die before letting the Xyphorians take over the Earth. One evening, as the Xyphorians began their sweep of the last human strongholds, Carter found his target. A high-ranking Xyphorian general was leading the charge, and Carter knew that if he took out the general, he could cripple the alien forces. The general was responsible for many of the massacres that had occurred. It was time for a reckoning. Carter crept through the broken streets, keeping to the shadows. His breathing was steady, his mind focused. He knew this would be the hardest part of the mission. Getting close to the general without being seen was nearly impossible, but Carter had always thrived in situations like this. He had learned to blend with his surroundings, to move with the precision of a predator. As he got closer, Carter could hear the sounds of alien soldiers talking in their strange mechanical language. He moved silently, his every step calculated. He was within striking distance when he saw the general standing near a cluster of Xyphorian soldiers, discussing their plans for the final phase of the invasion. Carter's heart raced. This was it. He drew his knife, its cold steel gleaming in the dim light. He had only one chance. If he made a sound, if he was seen for even a moment, the Xyphorians would tear him apart. But Carter wasn't afraid. Fear was something he had learned to conquer long ago. He lunged, taking out 2 guards in quick succession before the general had a chance to react. The alien's eyes widened in surprise, but it was too late. Carter was already upon him. In a swift, precise motion, he drove the blade into the general's chest. The Xyphorian general gurgled in pain, collapsing to the ground. For a moment, everything was silent. The other Xyphorian soldiers froze, staring at their fallen leader in shock. Carter stood over the body, his breath heavy, but his mind was already calculating his next move. He hadn't come this far to die in a fight. He had to keep moving. The battle wasn't over yet. But the attack had sent a ripple through the Xyphorian forces. They weren't just fighting for victory now. They were fighting for revenge. The loss of their general was a blow to their morale, and for the first time, they were beginning to question their belief that Earth was already theirs. The Xyphorians weren't the only ones who had underestimated humanity. As Carter made his way back to the Resistance's hidden base, he could hear the sounds of a distant battle. The Resistance had been waiting for the right moment, and now it had arrived. The Xyphorians were on the defensive for the first time in weeks. The loss of their leader had sparked something inside the human fighters. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. Carter knew this was the moment that would change everything. The war wasn't over, but the tide had finally shifted. He sent out a signal to the Resistance forces, telling them what had happened, giving them hope. The Xyphorians had made the mistake of underestimating humanity once, and now they would pay the price. The human resistance, led by Carter's attack on the Xyphorian general, rallied for the final push. The Xyphorians, once confident that victory was in their grasp, were now on the run. They had underestimated the resilience of the human spirit, and it was costing them. Carter had started the rebellion, and now, with the help of the remaining human fighters, they would finish it. It wasn't just about winning. It was about showing the Xyphorians that they had made a deadly mistake by thinking Earth would be an easy conquest. And as the final battle raged across the shattered land, Carter stood at the front of the charge, knowing that no matter what happened, humanity would never give up. The Xyphorians had underestimated humans, and now they would learn the hard way that humans don't stop fighting, not until the very end. The Xyphorians had been conquering planets for centuries. With their advanced technology and ruthless tactics, they had left a trail of destruction across the galaxy. Their invasion of Earth seemed like just another easy conquest, another planet to crush under their boots. They were wrong. Sergeant James Carter knew this wasn't just about survival. It was about something bigger, something that could change the course of the entire war. He had discovered a truth, something buried deep in humanity's past, a truth the Xyphorians had never anticipated. It was the key to their downfall, and Carter would make sure it was never forgotten. It all began when the Xyphorians first arrived on Earth. Their massive ships cast long shadows over the cities, blocking out the sun. They believed that humanity would crumble under the weight of their superior technology. The human military tried to resist, but their weapons were no match for the alien might. The cities fell one by one, and soon the Xyphorians controlled most of the planet. But Carter was different. He wasn't just another soldier following orders. He had a deep curiosity about history, a fascination with the past. And in the darkest moments of the invasion, when everything seemed lost, he stumbled upon an ancient secret buried in the ruins of an old city. It was an artifact, an ancient map, with strange symbols carved into it, leading to something no one had ever believed existed. The map led Carter to a hidden underground facility, long forgotten by time. Inside, he discovered the truth that had been buried for millennia. The humans of Earth had once been part of a great intergalactic alliance. They had technology that rivaled the Xyphorians and weapons capable of wiping out entire fleets. But over time, the alliance had collapsed, and humanity had forgotten their place in the galaxy. The Xyphorians, in their arrogance, believed that humanity was nothing more than a primitive species, ripe for conquest. But they had no idea what lay dormant beneath Earth's surface. The truth was simple: humanity had once been the guardians of a powerful weapon, a weapon so destructive that even the Exophorians feared it. It was hidden away, sealed in a place known only to a few, a place lost to history. And now, Carter had found it. But the Exophorians had their spies, and they were aware of the discovery. They were watching, waiting for Carter to make his next move. The tension was building, and the clock was ticking. If they found out what Carter had uncovered, they would destroy it before humanity could use it. Carter knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed help. He reached out to the remnants of the human resistance, spreading the word about the weapon and the ancient secret he had uncovered. There was a glimmer of hope, a small chance that humanity could still win this war. The resistance, though scattered and weak, began to regroup, gathering what little remained of Earth's forces. Carter was the spark that reignited their will to fight. As the resistance forces prepared for the final assault, Carter made his way to the underground facility once more. He had to unlock the weapon, but there was a problem. The facility was protected by ancient security systems that had been designed to keep out even the most skilled intruders. It was a race against time. Every second that passed brought the Exophorians closer to discovering the weapon's location. The underground facility was a maze of tunnels and chambers, each one more treacherous than the last. Carter moved through the darkness, avoiding traps and dodging automated defense systems. The deeper he went, the more he realized how much humanity had forgotten. The facility was ancient, older than anything he had ever seen, and yet it was still functioning, still guarding its secret. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Carter reached the heart of the facility. There, in the center of a massive chamber, stood the weapon. It was a massive, glowing orb, pulsating with a power Carter couldn't fully understand. The legends had been true. This was the weapon that could change the course of the war, the weapon that could drive the Exophorians from Earth once and for all. But Carter wasn't alone. The Exophorians had found him. Their soldiers flooded into the chamber, their weapons raised. Carter's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. He reached for the controls to activate the weapon. The Exophorians advanced, but Carter knew he had to finish what he had started. As the enemy closed in, he activated the orb. The chamber filled with a blinding light, and a shockwave of energy rippled through the air. The Exophorians screamed, their bodies disintegrating as the weapon unleashed its full power. For a moment, everything was silent. The glow from the orb faded, leaving only the ruins of the Exophorian soldiers. Carter stood, panting, his hands still resting on the control panel. The weapon had worked, but it had come at a cost. The weapon's power was immense, and using it had drained the facility's energy. Carter knew he didn't have much time before the facility collapsed. He turned and raced out of the chamber, back through the maze of tunnels. The facility was shaking now, its walls crumbling around him. He had done it. He had unlocked humanity's forgotten weapon and used it to turn the tide of the war. As he emerged into the light, Carter saw the first signs of victory. The Exophorians were retreating, their forces crumbling in the wake of the weapon's devastating power. The resistance was pushing forward, reclaiming the cities one by one. The truth that had been forgotten for so long was now known. Humanity had once been powerful, and now they were once again the guardians of that power. Carter had uncovered the truth, and he had used it to save his world. And as the last Exophorian ships fled into the sky, Carter stood tall, knowing that the forgotten truth had changed everything. Earth would never be the same again. The Exophorians had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity's hidden potential. And now, they would never forget the cost of that mistake. The Exophorians had always believed that Earth would be an easy conquest. Their massive fleets arrived without warning, shattering the sky above the planet and plunging the world into chaos. Cities burned, governments collapsed, and humanity seemed powerless in the face of such overwhelming force. The Exophorians thought they had won before the battle even began. But they had forgotten one thing, the heart of humanity. Sergeant James Carter had seen the best and worst of people in his years as a Marine, but even he couldn't have predicted what he would see in the face of an invasion. In the early days, it seemed like the humans were completely outmatched. Their weapons were useless against the alien technology, and the cities fell one by one. But Carter had always believed that there was something more to humans than just their technology. There was resilience, something the Xyphorians hadn't accounted for. It started with small victories, little acts of defiance. A group of civilians ambushed a small group of Xyphorian soldiers, taking their weapons and driving them out of a town. A small band of rebels sabotaged a communications relay, cutting off one of the alien warships. These were tiny victories, but they sparked something in the hearts of the humans. Carter was with a group of Marines on a mission to rescue a small resistance cell trapped in a city overrun by Xyphorians. It was supposed to be a simple extraction, a quick operation. But the aliens had fortified the city, and they were prepared for a fight. As Carter and his team navigated the ruins of the city, avoiding patrols and skirmishing with alien soldiers, he couldn't help but notice the signs of resistance everywhere. In the alleys, in the basements of destroyed buildings, and in the faces of every civilian they passed, there was a quiet determination to fight back. The first major battle came unexpectedly. The resistance, led by a former soldier named Maria Santiago, had managed to assemble a ragtag group of fighters who were ready to take on the aliens head-on. They launched a surprise attack on a Xyphorian supply depot, hoping to disrupt the enemy supply lines. It was a desperate move, but it paid off. The humans, using guerrilla tactics and their knowledge of the city, managed to destroy the depot and capture several Xyphorian soldiers. Word of the victory spread like wildfire. It was the first real blow to the Xyphorians, and it lit a fire in the hearts of humans everywhere. The attacks started getting bolder. More resistance groups formed, and the once frightened civilians began to rise up. They weren't just hiding anymore, they were fighting back. The Xyphorians, who had believed that humans were weak and easily conquered, began to realize that this planet would not fall so easily. The momentum shifted. The Xyphorians began to feel the pressure of a war they thought they had already won. Every day, more and more humans were joining the fight. From the youngest child to the oldest veteran, everyone had a role to play. The resistance built networks, developed new strategies, and began to wear down the alien forces. Carter, now leading a full assault force, understood something the Xyphorians never could. Humans didn't just fight for survival. They fought for their future. The turning point came when Carter and the resistance launched a massive counterattack on one of the Xyphorian strongholds. The aliens had fortified the area, believing it to be untouchable. But the humans had learned their ways. They had studied the alien technology, used their own ingenuity, and devised a plan that would hit the Xyphorians where it hurt the most, their leadership. In the dead of night, Carter led a team of Marines into the heart of the enemy's base. They moved quickly, silently, slipping past alien patrols and bypassing security systems. Their mission was simple: take out the high-ranking Xyphorian officers who were directing the war effort. The humans had learned that if they could cripple the command structure, the entire invasion would falter. As Carter and his team infiltrated the stronghold, they encountered resistance. Xyphorian soldiers were everywhere, but the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the aliens. They had nothing left to lose. With each step, they grew more confident, more determined to finish what they had started. They reached the command center where the alien officers were gathering. It was a large room surrounded by walls of metal and glass, with alien soldiers stationed at every entrance. Carter's team moved in. They were close now. The Xyphorian officers, oblivious to the threat closing in on them, continued to plan their next moves. Carter's eyes locked onto the leader, a towering alien with a face that could send chills down anyone's spine. He was giving orders with a cold, calculating tone. Carter knew that taking him out would be the final blow. Without warning, Carter and his team stormed the room. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were no match for the humans' sheer determination. It was over in moments. The Xyphorian leader was dead, and the command center was in chaos. The blow was devastating. The Xyphorians had lost their direction, their command, and with it, their confidence. The effects were immediate. As the news spread, the Xyphorians began to retreat. The human resistance, once scattered and disorganized, now had a victory to rally around. The Xyphorians had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had assumed that humans would fold in the face of an invasion, but they had no idea what they were truly up against. Humanity didn't just survive, they fought back with everything they had. The Xaphorians were no longer the unstoppable force they had once seemed. Every day, humanity took back more ground, pushing the aliens further and further from their planet. The final battle was still ahead, but the humans now knew that they could win. As Carter stood on the front lines, watching the retreating Xaphorian ships, he felt a sense of pride. The invasion had brought humanity to the brink of extinction, but it had also awakened something powerful in them. And now, the Xaphorians would learn the true meaning of humanity's strength. The humans would fight until the very end because that's what they did best.